fosters full respect for human rights, dignity, aspirations, identity, culture, and natural resource-based livelihoods of indigenous peoples. And then also those that are historically underserved, and then the historically underserved traditional local communities. Now, this is very important because there are some, will I say, traditional beliefs or some traditional practices or activities that go on within a particular location. So if a project is coming in and then it has to alter the way the people carry out their traditional activities, then it is not supported by this standard. So this process must respect that traditional activity or the traditional right, the human rights of the people within that area. And then the standard number 7 also works to avoid every adverse impact that the project will have on indigenous people, and then particularly those of us within this part of the world, sub-Saharan Africa, that is has historically underserved traditional local communities. But however, there's a caveat there that when avoidance is not possible, then there's need to minimize, mitigate, or compensate for such impact. So if it's totally impossible to preserve the traditional ways of life of those people, then there has to be a way of minimizing or even compensating them for taking that away from them. Then standard number 8 has to do with cultural heritage. This one recognizes that cultural heritage provides continuity when it has to do with either tangible or intangible forms. So this, for us in this part of the world, we all know that we have folk tales that we normally pass from generation to generation, and these things are not written. So there are places where they are tangible, that is, they are written, or they are material things that are transmitted. And there are places where it's not tangible. So it has to do with passing of information between the past, the present, and the future generation. So the standard number 8 is the one that sets out measures to protect the cultural heritage throughout the life cycle of the project in question. Then, standard number 9 has to do with financial intermediaries. Now, this one shows that there has to be strong domestic capital and financial markets. And then access to finance is important for economic development, growth, and poverty reduction. So if we don't have strong structures or strong capital markets, or there is no such structure within the nation, then it cannot access facilities for development from the World Bank. Usually, the financial intermediaries that are needed, these are required as a means of monitoring and managing all the environmental and social risks and the impacts, okay, of those projects that are being carried out, okay? So the financial intermediaries are the ones that will monitor the impacts. Then they also monitor portfolio risk, okay? This one has to do with each level or the nature of the finance or the financing that is being sought or carried out to ensure that the project succeeds. Then the financial intermediaries, the way in which the financial intermediaries manage the portfolio can take any form, okay? And this has to do with various considerations, and it includes also the capacity of the financial intermediary and the nature and scope of the funding to be provided by the financial intermediary. So the World Bank works through these financial intermediaries as a means of also funding or financing projects, developmental projects within the borrower countries. Then number 10, stakeholder engagement and information disclosure. This one ensures that there is transparency and then open engagement between the borrower and the project stakeholders. Okay. Now this is in line with standard best practice, and it can improve environmental and social sustainability of projects, enhance its acceptance, and then make significant contribution for successful project design and implementation. So if stakeholders are briefed or made aware of what is going on, what has been done so far, how have we been able to sort out things that are related to environmental risks and impacts as the project proceeds, they are carried along. In that way, there is goodwill, there is understanding, and then the project can succeed better than where there is no information disclosure. So, rising from the various standards, we now look at the key theories that back environmental impact assessment. So the first one we're going to talk about is systems theory. Systems theory is it's a quite complex theory because it looks at the entirety of the process. So everything that has to do with the working of the system forms what is called the system theory. So the system theory looks at the environment as a complex and interconnected system. This now comprises both the physical, biological, and socio-economic components. So the systems theory does not just pick out one component of the environment. Rather, it picks all the components as they work together. So it's an interconnectivity. So what happens in the physical environment affects the biological environment, and whatever happens in the two also affects the socioeconomic aspect. And so there is a cycle within these three components. So why is this relevant to environmental impact assessment? First, it helps to identify cause-effect relationship. Okay, a push-pull kind of relationship, because this determines the relationship between the cause and the effect as it relates to project activities and then the environmental components. And then it looks at the whole thing in a holistic way. Now, this means that every interconnectivity among all the environmental elements is considered. So that is to say, we are looking at a situation where nothing or no stone is left unturned. Every thing that leads to the success of the project is looked at within the systems theory. Secondly, we have sustainability theory. Now, this one, as the case may be, ensures that while we are meeting the needs of the present generation, the needs of the future generation is not compromised. So it's a theory that emphasizes long-term implications of the activities we are carrying out today. And this means that every project that is being executed is not valued or is not looked at, okay, just for the immediate impact, but also how would this affect the environment? How would it affect the social standing? And how would it affect the economic status of people or of the future generation, as the case may be? So sustainability theory does not just look at the now, it looks at what happens at several years after the project has been executed. Thirdly, it's a precautionary principle. Now, this is one of the principles I like so much because it's one that tells us that every step we take, we need to be careful because it deals with situations where we don't have enough scientific evidence to show whether something is going to cause an effect or not. You know, some joke they used to say, they say, when poison expires, does it become more poisonous or it becomes totally not poisonous? So that is something we don't really have a scientific knowledge as to tell us what happens when a poison expires. So in the absence of that, then the best solution is to take precaution, okay? And then the proof whether the poison becomes less poisonous or not poisonous will now rely or now depend on those that are advocating that, okay, yes, it can be taken, or no, don't take it. So whoever is proposing that take the poison because it has expired has to prove whether it has become not poisonous, as the case may be. So the precautionary principle, it encourages preventive action when you are uncertain about a situation. Then it also helps decision makers to look at alternatives, okay, or strategies that will mitigate situations, okay, if we cannot really establish that there's a cause-effect relationship in circumstances that are linked to project execution. Then, fourthly, we have the risk assessment theory. This one has to do with identification, quantification, and management of potential risks. So first of all, we have to find out, okay, what are the risks? Then we also have to measure, okay, the extent to which the risk affects. And then we also look at management of the potential risks that have been identified and quantified. This is important for EIA because it gives us tools that we can use to evaluate how likely or how severe the environmental impact can be. And then it also helps us to look at mitigation strategies and then produce contingency plans in cases where the risks now become full-blown and then cause potential harm. Then number 5, we have a cost-benefit analysis. Cost-benefit analysis, this one is a decision-making tool that looks at costs as against the action of its or the expected benefits that come out of the action that is being executed. So, how is this relevant to EIA? Cost-benefit analysis is used to determine if the social and environmental cost of a project, okay, if the benefits of the social and environmental project outweigh the costs that come along with it, okay? So, but again, this can be controversial because it's very difficult to quantify ecological and cultural values, okay? It's controversial, but somehow we have several different frameworks that can be used to quantify ecological and cultural values. So there are frameworks that are used to quantify ecological or value the ecological services, okay, that are within the ecosystem, and also value the cultural services within the ecosystem whichever ecosystem. I think one of them is the Ramsar framework, which has to do with the valuation of wetland ecosystem services. So if you want, I can share with you how that is done. But that's one of the very familiar ones I know. Then 6 is the participatory theory. This one promotes the inclusion of stakeholders in decision-making process. So participatory, as the case or as the name implies, this one now recognizes the value of local and indigenous knowledge. So for this theory, the theory looks at the situation whereby no knowledge is wasted. or just like they say in one of the US agencies that no idea is stupid. Okay, so whether not the idea will make sense, the most important thing is just bring it up so that people can discuss it. So in this case now, participatory theory tends to draw from the local knowledge. So even the the youngest person in the village or the oldest person in the village who may not have attended school has a chance to contribute something into the project and the process of EIA, as the case may be. So this one ensures that there's transparency, there's accountability, because there's public participation. So there's a public hearing that will be done to ensure that every knowledge is not thrown away. So number 7, we have a legal institutional theory. This one now focuses on the role of laws, institutions, and then governance structures in managing environmental issues. So like I think I said before, we have in Nigeria, we have NESRIA, which is the government agency that has to do with the management of the environmental problems we have. But I think we still have others in that category. So with them comes the enactment or the laws that were enacted in they are being set up. So they are the ones that ensure that there is compliance. Okay, so these people or the legal structures that we have, they are relevant to EIA because their activities are the activities that underpins the regulatory basis of environmental impact assessment. So they ensure that there is compliance with national and international environmental laws and policies. So the discussion so far has been looking at the theoretical framework. Now, this we have listed are kind of disjointed here and there. Okay, so but the most important thing now is how to join all the theories together to make sense. But before that can be done, okay, or rather, when we are putting all this together, it's what we call integrated analysis. So to do that, we need to answer 3 questions. First question is, what is happening to the environment and why? What are the consequences for the environment and humanity? So the first question is leading to the second question. There has to be something happening to the environment first. Then we'll now look at the consequences. Then after that, we'll now look at what is being done, okay? And then how effective is it? All right. So in order to answer these questions, the framework or the environment where these questions can be answered lies in the drivers, pressures, state impacts, responses framework, DPSIR. Okay, so that is to say, what are the causes? What is behind the causes? Okay, what's the present condition? Okay, how does it affect? And then what are the responses that are being derived from the impact? So this is how it goes. We have driving forces that comes as a result of, or that causes pressure, okay? And then that affects the state of the environment and then creates some impact. And then people would always respond. So the response can be in terms of driving forces. It can be tailored towards the pressures that cause the problem, or it can be directly towards the state of the environment, or made in such a way that they address the impact directly. So when we are using this framework, the assessment within this framework identifies the following things. So this have to do with drivers of human development. Then associated pressures, these now work together with natural processes. And these two now affect the state and trends of the environment. All right. And that is the reason why we have impacts on ecosystem services and then aspects of human well-being. And then this, to assess how society is, okay, all this together now work together so that we can assess how the society is responding to these problems and effectiveness of these responses. So that is the DPSIR framework as it in its entirety. So the driving forces, these ones are the underlying factors that shape development. And this includes economic growth and population growth. So economic growth and population growth are the driving forces that affect development from the start. Now, when we have a lot of human beings as a result of population growth, okay, pressure will not come as a result of human activities. And this pressure that comes from human activities affects the environment. Typical examples are emissions of polluting substances, as well as resource use. Okay, so emissions of pollution substances from the cars that we use, the fossil fuels that we burn in whatever form. And then for resource use as well, we'll be talking about things like deforestation as a result of cutting down of trees to make room for firewood and other things. Okay, so when we are looking at states, it has to do with the physical status of the environment at any given time, right? Then the impact is the consequences of the resource use, okay, on the state of the physical environment and how it has changed. All right, so the impact can be impact on health, can be impact on economic and environmental status of the environment. Sorry, of the environment. Okay, the impact can be on the health, it can be on the economic status, and then it can also be on the environment. That's what I meant to say. All right, so now when all these are put together, there has to be a response from the society as a result of the change that they have seen. So sometimes the change the response can be political, the response can be economic, or the response can be behavioral. And then I think the behavioral one is the one that speaks louder apart from the other two. We look at it. So what we are going to look at the driving forces first. Okay, the driving force for environmental change has to come from the needs that we have. But firstly, the individual, then the industry, and as a nation. So every person in this country has a need, and the examples of our need include food, includes shelter, and other things, which are the basic needs. All right. Now, the industries that we have set up, they have the need to make profit, they have the need to lower their costs, and then they also have the need to expand their markets. Then as a nation, as a whole, we have a need to increase or maintain the standard of living of the people, and then also to reduce unemployment. So these needs are the ones that determine how we use resources from our environment, and then how the use of the resource we are talking about now affects or impacts the environment. Okay, the underlying factors, okay, that affect that are the driving forces, okay, includes population growth, economic growth, energy consumption, and industrial production. So driving forces, okay, are underlying factors that influence development. And these are the ones that I say affect population growth, they affect economic growth, they affect consumption, consumption of energy and industrial production put together. Then what are the pressures? Now, when we have increased population, and with increased population comes increased human activities. And these increased human activities tend to be escalated in order to meet the needs of the people. And now this one affects the environment through production or consumption processes. So we are looking at emissions, we are looking at extraction, and then we are also looking at land use. So human activities are at the core of the pressure that affects the environment. Then, what is the state of the environment? This one has to do with the condition the environment is as at present, or and we can say was as at in the past. So it has to do with things like air quality, water quality, soil quality, ecosystem status. And it also encompasses things like biodiversity status as well. Now, oh, sorry. Yeah. Okay. So we are looking at impact. We've moved from the D, the P, the drivers, the pressure, the responses. Now we are going to look at impact. Okay. Effect of changes on both the environment and society. That is just the short definition of an impact. Now, if we are looking at change in human well-being, okay, it's just briefly defined as human freedom of choice and actions, okay, in order to achieve things like security, basic material needs, good health, and good social relations. And this one, they have effect on human development. Also affects whether or determines whether there will be poverty, okay, inequity, and then human vulnerability. So impact can create a lot of insecurity or create security, as the case may be. The responses. So society can make various responses, and these responses can either be political, can be economic, or behavioral changes. This behavioral, like I said before, is the one that has to do directly with the reaction of people to the changes that have happened in their environment. Okay. Now, these responses can be aimed at any of the links in the causal chain, okay, of the DPSI. Like I said before, if we go back to where we were from the start, let me try and move back there. Yes, this one. So the responses can be targeted at any of these steps or any of these areas within the DPSIR concept. Now, looking at it more explicitly, as we can see in the chart here, okay, the response comes to either the driving force, the pressure, the state of the environment, or the impact. So the response can be in 4 directions. But let's look critically at how these dynamics or the issues move one by one, or the dynamics of the forces we are talking about. Now, from the driving forces, which include the level of technology and then the level of activity we are talking about, the pressure now comes. Pressure comes because there is need to increase maybe capacity or other things as the case may be. And this now affects the state of the environment because there's a there's a level of capacity the environment can take. So that means there's a dose-response relationship. So the amount of maybe greenhouse gases we dose into the environment determines the impact of the greenhouse gas. And the impact generally is what we now know as climate change. So that means the impact will now cause us to have a perception of the issue. And with the perception of the issue, we now respond. So it's either our response is directed at what initially started the problem, that is the driving force, or the pressure that came as a result of the driving force, or we directly address the state of the environment, or we directly address the impact of the problem that we are talking about. So this model can be used as an analytical framework for addressing even water issues, for instance. And it also allows us to have a comprehensive assessment of the issues by examining the relevant driving forces and the pressures, okay, that they exert on the environment. Then we also know the consequent state of the environment and its impact, the responses that have been taken into consideration, and then the interlinkages between each of these elements. That is, how is driving force linked to pressure? How is pressure linked to response? How is response linked to the state of the environment? And then how does that determine the impact? So that ends the second topic. This, I think, hello class, are we there?
Yes, sir. We are here, sir.
Are we there?
Yes, sir. We are here.
Okay, so sorry, it seems there was an oversight on my part. The morning session, there were some questions that we did not treat. And I was thinking that when we come to the afternoon session, I will see them in the chat section. Section. Is that true? Would they be there? Because this is a different Zoom meeting. So I'm not sure. I've not checked.
Those that ask the question should react them again in the chat box.
Yes, yes,
And drop
please.
your questions in the chat box again.
Yes. Please, if you have questions, let's ask now because I think we just have 9 minutes to go.
Yes, sir. There is one. The chat box now.
Okay, I'm on the chat now.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so far our focus has been on the World Bank. Does that make the World Bank the biggest hub for all environmental activities? Or is this merely because this is a World Bank funded school program? Often, this leaves indigenous people stroke other perspectives out of conservation. How can we create a balance as experts? Then secondly, how can Nigeria balance its high dependence on oil versus ensuring environmental sustainability, given particularly as oil is our main source of income? In other words, is environmental sustainability feasible in poor countries like Nigeria, whose livelihood is oil by 100%? Okay, so um, the first question, the the World Bank, okay, is giving us a framework by which its own project funding is carried out. And then also, let us bear at the back of our mind that most of these international development or funding agencies, their frameworks are not quite different from each other, such that if you have the framework of the World Bank and then you are seeking development intervention from other agencies, you could as well, okay, use the framework, because it's just, we can say, it forms like a standard or best practice that you can use to work from there. Okay, so it's not that because we are working under the World Bank project, then we only promote the World Bank. No, the framework of the World Bank can also be applied to other funding interventions, as the case may be. Okay. Now, secondly, you are saying that it leaves indigenous people and other perspectives out of conservation. But if you look critically at what we've just said, I told us of the is it 9 ESS standards that we looked at. So the environmental standards, environmental and social standards of the World Bank has a component that deals with indigenous knowledge. So, and then I also has the participatory approach. So I don't think it leaves indigenous people out. I think the problem you had here is that you asked this question in the first lecture when we had not treated the strategy or the standards, okay, of the World Bank. So I think you are excused for that. Then secondly, how can Nigeria balance its high dependence on oil versus ensuring environmental sustainability? Okay, now the idea of environmental impact as a result of exploration activities has been a burning issue in the country. So that brings us to the fact that there's youth restiveness within the Niger Delta and all that. The best practice, in fact, let's just be frank with ourselves, okay? There is best practice for this extractive industry in other parts of the world. But because we are in a region where anything goes, put it that way, we have not been able to really grasp the best practice or enforce the best practice. But I think so far, so good. We are getting to the point where we now have professionals who can hold their own anywhere. And I think that's the reason why you people are part of this program, so that by the time you leave here, you are better off, or you are better footed in grounded in environmental sustainability, such that your yes will be yes and your no will be no when it comes to standards and then the compliance by such companies. So I think I can give an example of this in another form. You know, in the 70s, in the 80s, 60s, 70s, 80s, we used to have situations where maternal mortality was very high. But now maternal mortality in Nigeria has reduced drastically to a very low level. And this is because the women have now become more aware. And then we have gotten to a generation where education has played a very important role in the enlightenment of the women. So a lot of these issues from the past are now history. So I think we are getting to the point where, though we have not gotten there, but at least we will get there. Okay, those two questions were from Asen Bem. Okay, then I'm still looking. Okay, is there any penalties for companies or industries who don't follow ESS fully. Okay. ESS is the standard that is used by the World Bank to finance its project. Okay. So the one I've listed out for you is like the World Bank's blueprint. So, but if, for instance, Nigeria decides to adopt the ESS, okay, as part of its environmental management procedure, or for instance, let's say Nesria adopts these guidelines, or they we also have Federal Environmental Protection Agency, right? All this, they are able to adopt this. Then, yes, of course, companies can be penalized if they don't follow the standards. But for now, the only standards we have include the FEPA guideline and then the NESRIA guidelines. And then we now have another question. Can those standards, can these standards be used in oil and gas industries? I think it's similar to the one that I just answered just now. Okay. So we can move to the next question. Ajoko Philemon. It says, what is the difference between ESS 5 and resettlement action plan? Okay. Then secondly, is asking, can we refer to the precautionary theory as environmental proactive approach in disaster management? Okay. This question, okay, from Philemon, right? Right. Let's, oh, well, the questions are quite plenty. Okay, I think I have two more, right? So I'll try and answer them. Please, just give me like 5 minutes. Let me answer the questions, then we close for today. Is that okay, class? Hello, class. Hello, class. Okay, all right. Thank you. I'll go ahead. I've not missed the point. Please just give me time. Let me get back to the questions. Okay, I think I'm there now. Okay, so Philemon was asking ESS 5 and then resettlement action plan. Okay, so what is the difference between ESS 5 and resettlement action plan? Then can we refer to the precautionary theory as environmental proactive approach in disaster management? Okay, let me start from your second question. You're saying, can we refer to precautionary principle as environmental proactive approach? Well, it may not it may not be environmental proactive approach, or it may or may not. Let me put it that way. Okay. But the bottom line is that the precautionary principle is more like, okay, let's not do it if we don't know it. That is what it means. Let's not go ahead, okay, since we don't have all the evidence to support what we are about to do. That is what the precautionary principle does essentially. So when you're saying proactive, okay, yes, in a sense, it may look proactive, but when we talk about being proactive, it means that we are actually taking an action, okay, in a situation. That's what proactive means. All right. So the idea of the thing being proactive may not be so, or it may be so, as the case may be. Then, secondly, you were asking if the ESS 5, which is land acquisition, restrictions on land use, and involuntary resettlement, is different from resettlement action plan. Okay. If you look at it, okay, land acquisition, restriction or land use, and involuntary resettlement. So when you say involuntary resettlement, you are talking about a resettlement that is happening. The people who are being resettled are not uh, are not the ones that are moving themselves per se, but because they just have to move, okay, as a result of the project that is being that is about to be executed in their area. Okay, so it's involuntary, let's say resettlement. Okay, is not the same as a resettlement plan. The resettlement plan, okay, is the one that actuates the resettlement process itself. All right. So involuntary resettlement, okay, does not happen as a result of people moving by themselves. But the resettlement action plan is the one that actuates the resettlement process itself. So the two are different things entirely, okay? So please take note. Then we go to, as the Nigerian Environmental Impact Assessment Act been reviewed in the light of the World Bank ESS, for us, how can we harmonize the conflicting components? Okay, so, well, though I am not familiar with the whether the act has gone through the National Assembly or not. So I think we are in a class and they probably may be able to discuss this tomorrow or when I find out, okay, I will brief us tomorrow. Then how has corruption affected the implementation of EIA in Nigeria? Wow. Okay. I think this is from Wange Dewase. I think the best authority to answer this question can either be the ICPC, okay, or the EFCC, as the case may be. But we've not gotten any. I don't think we have gotten any cases within those agencies that are linked to environment. Rather, most of the cases you get from either ICPC or EFCC are linked to financial issues and financial crimes, as the case may be. Okay, so where are we now? I don't. Yeah, I think that is okay. Resettlement action plan is an instrument that comes as a result of the provisions. Okay, so this is exactly what I said. I said the resettlement action plan, okay, is the plan that relocates the people. All right, so it's not as if it's the same thing as ESS 5 itself. Okay, it's used in carrying out that involuntary um, movement. So I think that does it all. Thank you so much. Angu, back over to you. Hello, Angu.
Yes, sir.
Yes, I think I've answered the questions.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so with that, I bring the class today to a close. So we'll see tomorrow by 9 a.m. again.
Okay, thank you very much, sir.
Is that clear?
Yes, sir. They're answering in the chat box, sir.
Or they are still asking?
No, answering you, sir.
Okay, all right, okay. All right.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you all. I'm grateful
Thank you.
to everyone.
Welcome, sir.
All right. Thank you so much.
With the
So see you tomorrow by 9.
try to submit our
Okay.
code of
Attendance.
conduct form,
Okay.
please. It's on the student
What
WhatsApp
about
group.
the attendance?
It's been taken. The mail is
Okay.
recorded, so it's still been
All
taken,
right.
sir.
It's okay. So I think I can leave now.